All right, so thank you everybody for joining today. I have a very special guest. This is Professor Bart Kay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Privileged to be asked. Good to see you.
All right. So Bart, why don't you, for our users or our viewers, if some of them don't know you that well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to where you started promoting the carnivore diet?
Yes, I was an academic working in the field of health science in various different specializations. Within that field, I drifted from place to place over a career spanning a couple of decades, just over. So I had pretty good exposure to that. I published a number of science research articles, a number of book chapters, all those kind of things you do. Taught probably 20,000 different students at least over that period of time. At the end of the academic year, not that many years ago, I went, you know what? Actually, this is enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. And so I did. And I wasn't sure what that something different was going to be. So I spent 12 months kind of, what am I going to do? And then I decided, after a discussion with an old friend of mine, he said, you could do YouTube. And I said, what? What do you mean you can do YouTube? What do you mean do YouTube? How do you make money off YouTube? It turns out I was right. Actually, I was right. It's tough to make money off YouTube. But actually, I wasn't aware that there was any possibility that anyone could at all. I had to have it explained to me how YouTube works, how the YouTube economy works, how people that make videos for YouTube get paid anything for doing that. And once that was explained to me, I said, oh, fine, I can give that a go. I've got a kind of personality where I can do a bit of character acting, play a bunch of different characters, is what you'll see on my channel. And give good information, but do that subversively, perhaps abrasively, depends how you view things, perhaps with some comedy, depends on your sense of humour. But mainly it's about educating by subterfuge, before people understand that I'm educating them. They're entertained first, usually, is what I'm saying. So that was the transition from straight-laced lecturer to not so straight-laced YouTuber. I like it here. I prefer this. That's my story anyway, in a nutshell. Oh, sorry, you wanted me to talk a little bit about how I came across the diet itself. I saw it online, like everybody else, at some point. I had been a member of the keto supporting lifestyle for 27 years up to that point. And I'm now well over 30 years into that and about 8 years into the carnivore diet. So when I saw it online, it was just a natural progression. It made sense. It was in line with what I understood about human physiology, anthropology, our genetic past, all of that. And I went, yeah, that makes sense. I'll do that. And I've always been first on board for everything that's a bit different. I think I'm hardwired that way. Anyway, enough. There it is.
So you said 8 years on carnivore diet now. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed with watching your channel is you've talked a lot about, different times in it. I guess I'm not sure how I'm trying to say this, but like at different times on your channel, you've talked a little bit about like you have some yogurt or something. And then there's been other times where you're like, I'm going to just go completely straight for 30 days or whatever, where I'm doing like I'm supposed to do and just go full carnivore. Yeah. And then you've had like amazing results doing that.
Yes.
What do you think the difference is, putting your professor hat on here, between just that little bit of carb and then just going completely clean? Why does that like 5% seem to make such a big difference?
I think that any departure from our natural programmed nutritional approach, our natural diet as a species, anytime you do anything that doesn't fit in with that, there is a price to pay, either immediately or long term, or anywhere in between, or all of them, actually, ongoingly. So I think the biggest rate of penalty occurs at the very early end of the scale, and then the severity of penalty tends to level out. It's not a straight line penalty versus transgression. So a lot of people say, well, 95% carnivore, you should expect 95% of the goodies. That would be fair, wouldn't it? Only, I don't know if your nan told you, but mine told me way back when that, if you expect life to be fair, you're going to be disappointed, son. That's what she said to me. And I was disappointed about many aspects of life, to be fair. But again, that's also for another day.
I've seen you do like a lot of different things on your channel, like where you try to prove out there that the whole calories in, calories out thing, right, is just, that's not a thing. Like, first of all, the whole idea of calorie, like it's something that you're burning, right? It's not food that you're eating.
Yes.
But like, so there's been times where you've done different challenges where you've tried to show that no matter what you ate, as long as you were eating the right thing, you could lose weight. So can you talk a little bit about that and kind of like how you approach that and some of the challenges that you've done on your channel?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the first thing I would pick up on there is the choice of word proof. With my academic head on, with that hat on, I would have to go, we need to be careful with the word proof. Proof refers to a set of empirical data points that we can subject to an appropriate statistical analysis, which we then need to interpret appropriately as well in order to come to a conclusion about the facts of the matter. So what I was doing was N equals 1 pseudo-experimentation. The pseudo-experimentation was actually designed more around making a point and showing something to people publicly rather than actually experimenting or trying to find out about the truth of the universe. I just wanted to show something happening in practice. Because we're told that what happened in my case in practice is impossible by all these people who have this calories in, calories out canon that they like to point to, refer to, stand upon, say is unassailable and the actual science. And anyone who's saying anything else doesn't understand it. If they are correct and I am incorrect, then what happened would not have happened. It is an impossibility. And for those that didn't watch it, what happened was I basically tripled my intake of so-called calories from what it was baseline. So I was taking in 3 times as many calories per day, every day for 14 days. And there was a plus or minus 500 range, I think, rather than standard deviation, actual range. So I was quite good. I was quite adherent to tripling up and eating far too much food, basically. Now, what I did eat was all muscle meat of beef, the associated fat, butter, a small amount of unsweetened Greek yogurt. I know, crucify me, I'll need to hand my card in immediately. Salt, water. That was about it. And then at the end of that, what happened is I actually lost weight on the scale. And it went down by 15 pounds, I think it was from memory, plus or minus error of measurement day to day on a person's weight. There's always a range on everything. I was using a biometric impedance scale, which gives you some idea of the makeup of the weight that's either gone on or come off your body over any given period. It's not that accurate, but it's okay. It gives you some idea. And that suggested to me that about 12.5 was water and about 2.5 was fat. So my question is this: eating 3 times as many so-called calories as I was beforehand for a period of 2 weeks, during which time, forget the water, just ignore it, I lost 2.5 pounds of fat, plus or minus error of measurement. Explain that to me if calories in, calories out is absolutely inviolate truth of the universe. Shall we wait?
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't work, does it? Can't work. See, the thing of course, what makes logical sense when you actually stop for more than 3 seconds and just think about this, weight is made up of matter, things that have mass, things that weigh on a scale. The only way to change your weight on a scale without leaving the planet and going somewhere where gravity's different is you would need to lose mass. Water, carbon dioxide, a few other traces and things in your urine, minerals and such like, a few proteins and stuff, sweat, insensible losses, vapor at the lungs when you're breathing, tears, mucus, all losses of actual weight, mass, things that you could put on a scale and weigh it and say that weighs X number of grams. The only way to gain weight is to eat things that have mass, i.e. food. Although, again, calories in, calories out. Well, coal weighs something, doesn't it? A lump of coal. Let's say a 1 pound lump of coal. How many calories in that? God, I wouldn't even like to calculate it. Thousands of big calories in that. Eat it and see if you can get fat. No, you will weigh more, the exact same amount that the coal weighed, until you get rid of the coal out of your body somehow. I really am not suggesting people should eat coal. Okay? Disclaimer for boys and girls, for young players at home, don't eat coal. All right? So it's just not going to work. Calories are measured as the effect of transference of mechanical kinetic energy in the form of heat. And that is only transferable from one thing to another thing using photons Photons have zero rest mass. No amount of absorbing photons nor releasing photons will change your mass, not 1 gram, ever. Mass in, mass out. Now, good luck tracking it. You can't. You can't count how much mass you're taking in accurately, much more accurately than you can with calories, but still not that accurately. And certainly, measuring mass out, unless you gather up every breath of expired gas that comes out of your lungs, it's not going to work because there's mass in that. There's carbon dioxide gas that weighs something in that. There's H2O gas that weighs something and that you got to collect it and weigh it. Are you going to do that at home? No. Okay. So, mass in, mass out, much more accurate than calories in, calories out as a predictor for what will happen to someone's body mass / composition over time. Neither tool particularly of utility. If you want a perfect body composition, at some point, you have to start the journey that will get you there at some point. Your mileage may vary as to how long it takes you to get there, of course, but what you need to do is eat a species-appropriate, species-specific diet, and probably 4 other health hacks that I talk about often, but we'll get to those if we get to them. And you do those 5 things every day, presto, at some point, your body composition, body mass optimizes for your genetic instructions. Because no one's actually genetically instructed to be fat, by the way. That's nonsense. Are we just a fat family? Yeah, sure, genes are shared in families, absolutely. But I tell you what, so are eating patterns and exercise patterns and activity patterns, aren't they? So which one was causal?
So your grandfather or great-grandfather or so forth that was skinny, it was in their genes too, but they were skinny, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just didn't get those genes, those skinny ones. I got the fat ones.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned your other 4 hacks, and let's actually go into there because one of them I find really intriguing, and I've been following ever since I learned this from you. And this has to do with grounding yourself, right, to the earth. There's a lot of people that don't realize this and actually think you're crazy when you talk about it. Yeah. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about the science behind this?
You bet. Look, when I first heard this, someone saying you should keep yourself grounded to Mother Earth all the time, I thought, oh, you hairy-legged, crystal-waving woo-woo, what are you talking about, you loon? I'm a scientist, for goodness sake. What on earth are you saying here, is what I thought to myself. And then I thought, well, hang on, just look and see if there is anything that would support these claims. There is. As it turns out, experimental, small-scale studies, absolutely, but nonetheless, studies on human beings reacting, apparently, all else being relatively equal, to being grounded or not for some period of time on a daily basis, whatever it is. There are just a few examples. I've got a video that's like a 5-minute, I've got a series of videos called In 5 Minutes or Less, where I start with a timer at the top of the screen and I count down and I explain something as quickly as possible, 5 minutes or less. And this was one about grounding specifically, so that folks can go and have a look at on my channel if you like. I think there's about 19 science papers that I quickly splash up on the screen during that short video, showing different effects and things. This is a paper, and here's another one, and here's another one, and it's all exciting. Nope. We're not looking at them or analysing them. We're just saying these papers exist. Anyway, I've read the papers and they all look to word themselves reasonably and not overstep their bounds of what they're able to establish. And they seem like reasonable sorts of bits of work, is what I'm saying, with fairly good inferences. Here are some inferences. If you ground yourself electrically, the second you do that, instantly, basically, the effective viscosity, thickness of your blood drops by a factor of 3. Wow, that's incredible. That means your heart immediately has to work that much less hard because the blood is that much thinner, that the force required to basically push it through the vasculature is that much less. That has to be a good thing in a society that's chronically hypertensive at large. So that would seem to be a fairly immediate thing and a fairly, straight away, that's got to be a good thing. Wound healing seems to be expedited when you ground. If you have those that have aberrant cortisol profiles, individuals that have aberrant cortisol profiles, they seem to normalize. Those who had normal profiles at the outset, no change. Okay, so it's not negative, but it seems to positive up the negative side of the ledger when you have that going on. Rest and relaxation, it actually changes your brainwave activity immediately. When you ground, your brainwave activity switches from fight and flight, readiness, to rest, recuperate, relax, everything's fine mode. People report improved relaxation, sleep, etc., just by sleeping on a grounded mat. Yeah, a whole bunch of other sort of things. As I say, there were about 19 different studies that I alluded to in that short video that people can go and look at for themselves. No evidence of any harm Why would there be? We evolved electrically connected to the earth, didn't we? It's only the last, 150 years that we've started putting rubber on the soles of our shoes and wearing those all day, building houses that are electrically insulated because of the electrical code, so we're not getting grounded while we're in our houses, driving around in cars with rubber tyres on them. But, we have suddenly, in the blink of an eye, changed our entire existence on this planet by cutting off our electrical connection to it. No wonder there's been problems associated with that, I think. That's just a theory, though.
So for some people, obviously it would be as much as you can do it, you want to do it. But for some people, they can't do it as much as other people, right? Sure. They might work in a building and so forth, or they might drive a lot.
Yeah.
So what would be recommended for people? Like, how often do they really want to do this to make sure that they're getting the benefits?
Right. Okay. So this absolutely is more is better. The more hours per day you can ground, the better, I feel. Practically, what I do is I sleep grounded, and when I'm working down this end of the house, I'm touching a mouse pad right now, which is grounded. So I'm grounded while I'm working, and I'm grounded while I'm sleeping. That cuts out probably 20 hours a day for me, personally. Others aren't going to be able to do that. Although if you work at a desk in an office situation, you absolutely can. You can get a grounding mat for your desk, a mouse pad, whatever. If you drive a lot, there are forms of grounding mats that connect to the earth circuit of the vehicle. So you can sit on a grounding mat while you drive, for example. There are ankle wrist strap with connection points that you can use. So it's possible. It's just a bit of a faff at some points in some people's lives. Yeah, for me, it's just get it done by whatever means, as many hours a day as you individually can in your life, with the caveat of how much effort are you prepared to go to, and how much weight do you put on this theory that being grounded to the earth is definitely likely to net you positive outcomes. It's number 3 on my list of 5 in terms of its weighting. That doesn't mean when I suggest to people you should do these 5 things to be minimally inflamed and maximally likely to be as healthy as you can be. It doesn't mean that one is able to negotiate with the 5. I think I'll do 1, 2, 3, and 5, but not 4 or something like that. No, you've got to do them all. But I still need to give you some idea of the weighting importance of them. So grounding, I think, is number 3 and 5.
And what would be number 2 then? So number 1 obviously was a proper human diet, right?
Yes.
So what's number 2 then?
Number 2 is the daily consumption of a range of nutraceutical products produced by a company called Cerule, Cerule. The link for which will be up on the screen right now and probably underneath this video in the show notes in a clickable format as well. What do these products do? There are really 2 major effects, nutraceutical effects that occur when people take these products. Number 1, a vastly increased release of adult stem cells from the bone marrow to the bloodstream. Those adult stem cells being the person's own stem cells derived from their own bone marrow containing their own DNA. Such blank cells then tool around in the blood for a bit, sending out anti-inflammatory messages, telling cancer cells to undergo apoptosis, kill themselves off, settling down things, making everything soothing and happy, and then eventually settling on a tissue, a cell, somewhere in your body, which is so badly worn, damaged, diseased, aged, whatever, that it needs replacing with a new one, and it does exactly that. It differentiates into a brand new cell of the kind it's just replaced. And it does that with a full-length telomere, by the way. Wow, incredible. So that's our flagship product. It's called Stem Enhance Ultra. Stem Enhance Ultra, that's the stem cell release agent. It is an active ingredient derived from a blue-green cyanobacter. Then what happens is the company harvests these blue-green cyanobacteria out of the lake. They put it through a proprietary filtration and activation process that cleans it up and activates it so that there are no toxins in it. The algae straight out of the lake, toxic. You don't want to be eating that stuff. There are many companies selling dried lake algae. They call it algae. It's actually blue-green cyanobacter. No, that's toxic. You You don't want to do that. This product is filtered, cleaned up, it's activated to make it actually do what it's supposed to do, and it's encapsulated in a factory. I know, incredible. And sent to the end consumer for eating on a daily basis. And then we have support products around reducing your inflammatory overburden and also improving the blood flow, kinetics and dynamics as well. Great product range, awesome stuff. The Nutraceuticals, I'm not suggesting that people need to take a nutritional supplement on a carnivore diet. Everything you need nutritionally is in your carnivore diet. These products are nutraceutical. They have an additional benefit, which humans have been able to, through research, work out that this is a thing that will do that in the human body, make it work so that it will do that, put it in a pill so that you can eat that. People seem to think that because I promote what is naturally good diet-wise should be what we do, that I would immediately, therefore, logically make the step that because some of the things that people do in terms of diet don't make sense and are bad, therefore that every human intervention in every field of endeavour is also bad. So pills manufactured in a factory out of blue-green cyanobacter, bad because it's a human invention? No. It works. It's good stuff. It does what it's supposed to do. It's fantastic. So that's number 2, cerule products. Get yours yesterday.
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to this because I've been taking them, so I'm going to share my experience as well.
Cool.
But I'm glad that you brought up a couple of points here. First of all, that you don't need anything in terms of your diet as long as you're doing the right, proper human diet, you know, the carnivore diet, that's all you need for the diet. And this is an enhancement to that, right?
Correct.
And then the other key point to this is somebody's going to look and say, okay, I'm on the carnivore diet, but you know, that has plant material in it. But you just said that it's filtering out the toxins. The toxins are the problems in the plants and they're getting filtered out. So you don't have to worry about that with this product.
Yes. Okay, so the active ingredient in our stem cell releasing agent, Stem Enhance Ultra, is derived mostly from blue-green cyanobacter. Blue-green cyanobacter is neither a plant nor is it an animal. It's its own classification in the middle. Okay, so it says on the bottle, suitable for vegans. Of course it is, because it doesn't contain animals, because bacteria are not classed as animals. It's also completely fine for carnivores because cyanobacter is not a plant either. It's in the middle of plants and animals. As it turns out, the product also contains 1 or 2 herbal extracts, or herbal extracts if you like. Things that have been shown to be beneficial, at least in a laboratory situation, whatever. Things that the company in its infinite wisdom put in the products and say, oh look, it also contains these antioxidants and these plant extracts and whatever else. Fine, I couldn't give a rip. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the effect of the release of the stem cells. So long as the plant material doesn't do me any harm, which it doesn't, then jobs are good in. I'm happy with that. I promote a carnivore diet. I promote a 100% carnivore diet in terms of what you eat. Sure. As ideal, I say to people you shouldn't eat whole plants. Sure. I have never said plant extracts selected with good knowledge and experience of what they do that actually are beneficial. I've never said that's contraindicated. Why would I say that? Humans have been using plant extracts for medicinal purpose for eons. That's got nothing to do with nutrition.
All right. So let me tell you a little bit about my experiences. I've been taking it for about 4 months now. I'm taking the Stem Enhance Ultra, Cyactive, and Plasma Flow. There you go. Yeah.
Here's what I prepared earlier.
So this is why it's such a good point to talk about how it enhances carnivore. So for me, I started carnivore it's almost 14 months ago now. And I did lose quite a bit of weight so far, but some of the big things for me have been, joint pain, arthritis, stuff like that has gone away. I've had more energy, different things like that, right? But then once I started taking this, and it was probably within a few weeks, my energy levels even shot up more, like big time. And I have banged my foot, like my toe. I had arthritis that was, in the x-rays and so forth on my toes. And I've banged my toes since I've been on carnivore, and like it'll hurt for a little bit, but then it goes away, but never like the flare-ups I used to get. But like now I've banged my toe and it doesn't even hurt. Like, I don't know what it is about it that I guess probably the Cyactive as well. because all three of those kind of work together. And again, I'm saying this, and you're the technical in here, but probably I'm thinking the Cyactive really helps with getting rid of the inflammation. So like I don't have any inflammation left in my body for the most part. So when I'm banging it, like it doesn't even hurt anymore. And that is something that I've noticed with these products, which I think is quite interesting.
Okay. Probably a sign that there's not much else going wrong in your body, because the body has a fantastic way of trafficking stem cells to the thing that your body decides is the biggest priority for repair and renewal right now. So if you, for example, had some damage to your heart tissue that you didn't know anything about that needed repairing, plus increasing the lushness of your hair, it's going to choose fix your heart first. The stem cell system is usually involved in fixing up things that could be problematic. It's only really when there's not much else for them to do that they can find things like, oh, let's renew and rejuvenate the hair follicles here and whatever else. So that's probably a good sign.
All right, so let's change things up a little bit again now. So we've talked about the first three things, right, that you recommend. What's number 4?
Number 4, block blue at night. That's the quick way of saying it. Dark amber coloured lenses. I have clip-ons. I have like sunglasses styles ones. They're actually sold for people and they're told they should wear them in the daytime. No, these are nighttime wear. And it's to do with the melanopsin receptors in the eye, which react to such wavelengths of light, those in a particular blue wavelength or range, that tells the body that it's daytime. And so your circadian rhythm becomes upset by all this nighttime blue light and stuff. And it causes an incongruence between what you are seeing and what your melanopsin receptors are receiving. So that's something to get squared away.
And then there's a 5th one, correct?
Yes. The right amount of the right sort of exercise at the right intensity for the right number of minutes per session, the right number of times per week. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah. High intensity burst and repeat activity, sprints, hill work, resistance training, all the high end, top end of the power output, speed output range in short bursts with significant rest in between bursts, 30, 45 minutes per session, no more than 4 times a week. Work to rest ratio, possibly as much at the beginning as 1:5, working back towards more like 1:2 when you get really used to such high intensity work. And or you can do as much very, very low intensity, long, slow distance walking style, yomping around type behavior, but avoid everything in the middle, the so-called endurance, aerobic, cardiovascular training zone. The thing that everyone bangs on about being really good for you, no, it's not. Bad idea. Stay away from that. That's probably a discussion for another day, because it's a whole lecture by itself on exercise physiology.
So let's go back to the carnivore diet. Obviously, that's the number one thing. So let's go into that. And something that I know you've talked about a lot before is don't just jump into it. Ease yourself into it. If you're like on the standard diet out there that's just bad with eating all that crap and everything, right? Kind of put us through the science of why you need to ease into it and explain that a bit for us.
Okay. So what you have in your colon is a microcosm, an ecosystem, if you like, of bacteria and similar types of microscopic life. And some of it is quite large as well, by the way. It's not all just little bacteria. There's actual living things going on there in your gut. And the balance of the species present, the numbers of those species present, their interactions, the way they play nicely together, share the blocks, etc., is largely determined by what your diet is, your dietary pattern is. If you suddenly change the incoming resources by changing your diet markedly overnight, let's say you're on a standard Western diet, which is rich in carbohydrates, a bit poor in fats to be fair, and probably a little bit poor in protein while we're at it, then your microbiome will have settled on that's the resources. So let's come up with the most healthful, peaceable balance that we can in this particular colon on the basis of that's what the resources are. Suddenly you change those resources. Now we're going to be rich in protein, rich in fat, and we're going to rip out all the carbohydrates suddenly. All of those greeblies and bacteria and things that are reliant entirely upon the carbohydrate are not going to be happy. There's going to be a war for the limited resources that there are. And some of those bacteria are going to start exuding chemicals to fight with each other and kill each other off that they weren't doing before. And that's going to irritate the gut lining, loosen up the gap junctions, make us inflamed. Whoops, now we're basically vulnerable. We have exposure that was not previously a problem because everybody was getting on well and the resources were understood and known about. It's like any ecosystem. You completely change the food chain overnight and it's going to be disastrous. There are certain species of bacteria that live in our colons that when they feel, whoops, food resources are not what we'd like, we better look after ourselves and go into stasis. Some of those things will grow like a capsule, a time capsule, go into stasis in this capsule. But before they do that, they go nom, 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 and eat into the wall of your colon to embed themselves in there, to build this capsule in there to wait out until the senses can sense that the food sources come right. So now you've got a bunch of bacteria that were living peaceably on the surface of your enteric cells or associated with it. Now they're going to chomp in there. Nom, nom, nom. And obviously that's going to cause damage, an inflammatory reaction, etc., etc., etc. The last thing you should do is change your diet hugely overnight. You should always do it slowly over 6 to 8 weeks.
And I think that's a very key point to get across to people, because from what I've seen, the people that go to the carnivore diet and then end up leaving it, most of them are in the first couple of weeks, and it's because they've jumped in and they start having issues and they're like, oh, I can't do it.
They're not wrong. They never really were a carnivore properly. I think other than myself, I can't think of anyone that is stressing this, saying to people, don't change your diet suddenly. Some people get away with it without any apparent problems.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
And so I did ease in. I started kind of doing the carnivore thing the keto thing, and then slowly eased into it. Part of that is because I was watching your videos. But it's funny because anytime I ask people out there that are doing carnivore, they're all like, yeah, I jumped into it. Like, you're right. Nobody's really talking about it. And I think that's a very important piece, because the majority of the people that do leave carnivore is because of that beginning, that they're just like, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. But it's because of that, their body's adjusting and they don't understand that.
Also, nobody tells them that once they become a proper carnivore, it's likely that their frequency of bowel movement will drop significantly once every second or third day, often in the first 6 to 8 months. And nobody tells them that's okay, that's normal, that's fine, that's not a problem. You're not constipated, you just don't have any excrement to get rid of because your body's using everything you're feeding it. There isn't anything in that that's indigestible and not of use, like huge wads of fiber that you'll find in plants, which is not only useless to us, but also pro-inflammatory, toxic, nasty stuff in our colon. Our colons aren't designed for that. Yeah, it's one of those things that people just need to get their head around. And the only way that you're really going to get your head around it, if you haven't already, is by doing an N=1 experiment on yourself. Come across to the dark side. We will complete your training. Join us here on the dark side of carnivore. It's good over here. What do you think, Brian? Do you like it? Are you enjoying the carnivore lifestyle?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
It's been great. I mean, I talk a lot on my channel about some of the things that I've healed. One of the things for me that was huge was back in 2018, I developed AFib. So, the heart rate starts going up and so forth. And it got to the point that I was probably having an episode a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly into carnivore, it went away, and I'm over a year now without a single episode. That's one of the huge things for me. I had diagnosed arthritis in my big toes, had really bad joint pain. I had back and hip pain laying in bed, and I was overweight, obviously, but my excuse was that my mattress was old, 10, 15 years old, whatever. So I was like, yeah, it's the mattress. But I didn't get a new mattress. I just started doing carnivore and that pain went away. So there's been so many things like that. And then there's so many people I've talked to that have reversed like type 2 diabetes and so forth. It's amazing how when you eat the proper human diet, how so many of these diseases and like autoimmune diseases and so forth just go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So yes, those are the 5 things that I suggest to people. I suggest to people that the first thing to understand is that almost every complaint, condition, disease, or issue that a person experiences in Western lifestyles is underpinned causally at its root by chronic systemic inflammation. So I'm big on pushing this anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And I think, in my opinion, there are the five most important things a person can relatively reasonably do to add into their life to reduce the likelihood of inflammation being a problem for them. And so I've been kind of on this message probably for about 12 months now. It doesn't change any of my previous messaging in terms of the micro facts of this and that. But this is kind of a new focal point that people need to understand. Inflammation is the issue here. No matter what's going on, pretty much it's inflammatory. And if it's not that, it's genetic. And if it's genetic, well, So let's deal with the inflammation and see what kind of improvement we can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In that order of priority, none of it's negotiable. You've got to do all 5, I think, to get the... I think those 5 things all add up to about 95% of a person's inflammatory propensity. From experience, that just seems to be about where it is.
And so inflammation, from what I've read and watched on different videos, your inflammation obviously has to do with heart disease and stuff too, right? And where doctors have got this wrong about cholesterol was their correlation to like heart disease and so forth. But really, that was fighting the inflammation, right? Is that the way?
Look, it seems pretty. Yeah, it does. It seems pretty clear and obvious to anyone with a remotely competent faculty of reason that the reason cholesterol is being delivered to damaged epithelial cells in the vascular tree is in order to attempt to effect repairs. When you understand that the very cell membrane of every single one of the cells in your body is 50% cholesterol, if you damage one of those cells, you need raw materials to repair it. There's going to be an amount of cholesterol needed there. So your body's going to deliver it there. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease is exactly the same as turning on the television, seeing a raging forest fire with fire crews scurrying around doing their thing and saying, look, it's those bloody fire crews again. They're always there. When we see fire crews. Let's get rid of these jolly fire crews. That's about as sensible as it is. I mean, that might seem ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. There is no clinical evidence, cause and effect, linking cholesterol with heart disease at all, or anything even associated with the cholesterol, including its lipoproteins or any fraction of the lipoproteins. Heart disease, atherosclerosis, is absolutely underpinned by a chronic inflammatory immune dysfunction, not a lipid dysfunction per se. So you're right, they've got it completely wrong, and it's completely wrong with malice aforethought and with knowledge. They just don't care. And they don't care because the way it's worked is thus. The doctors who work on the coalface are mandated to take these readings from a person's blood, to interpret them in a certain way, and to react, paint by numbers. If the number is more than X, then you write the script for the statin. And if you don't, you get struck off the medical register and you lose your job and your ability to earn a living, and you've wasted all that training and all that money you spent on becoming a medical professional. Who pays for that? The companies that make the statins that need to be prescribed. Do they kick back to the medical schools? Do they own the medical schools outright? Not even subtly? Do they have the high priests of their evil religion standing up and beating their chests and saying, look at this overwhelming pile of evidence that cholesterol causes heart disease? Well, I'm a cardiovascular pathophysiologist, among other things, published in the area, a researcher in the area. I know this area like the back of my hand, and I can promise you there is not one single scrap of clinical evidence that cholesterol causes heart disease. Not one. Because that would take an experiment where we took genetically identical human beings and we split them in half at birth and we lock them in separate labs that are controlled for every single aspect of their life, every single one, except their exposure to cholesterol, and we follow them for a lifetime and see which half of the pairs of twins that we've got in the labs live longer. If you've got such a study that's been published somewhere, let me know about it, because I've missed it. As did clearly the ethics committee that was supposed to say no to that study, because that's what they would say. And also, where's the money coming from to run such a study? Also, who's prepared to spend their life on such a study? Let alone getting people to volunteer to be the people they're going to be locked in labs for their entire life, kept under control and observation so that we know they comply, etc., and all of that. This is a theology, this heart disease lipid hypothesis. It's called a hypothesis because it is unestablished. That's what the word means. It means this is an idea, this is a theory, so-called educated theory, but in actual fact, this particular theory is demonstrably false. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
All right. So I have one more question for you because this is a really hotly discussed topic within carnivore.
Yes.
What is your take on organ meats?
Right. I don't, personally, to speak of. I might occasionally eat a bit of spinal cord material out of a chop, something like that. Very, very occasionally, I might have the liver of a fish if I have caught that fish myself that day. Otherwise, no. Once or twice a year, maybe I have a little bit of liver pate, so long as that liver pate has been made by my dear partner Pim. Otherwise, no. There is no need. That's something that I would do I don't even enjoy organs particularly, especially not just as they come. You see these people chowing down, not only on something like a whole liver, but like chewing into this thing raw or whatever. No, you're just an extremist looking for attention online. Maybe you genuinely do enjoy that. Well, good luck to you. Tell you what, though, it's probably going to cause you a problem at some point because, well, too much liver is apparently toxic. And a lot of people say, oh, vitamin A. No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the copper that you'll find in it. It'll cause you to potentially be prone to copper toxicity, an overplus of copper, which upsets the balance of a whole bunch of other things and will lead you to poor physiological function, at the worst point, even potentially to death if it's not dealt with. Yes, there are a lot of nutrients that you'll find in liver in highly concentrated form. Some of those can be useful in small amounts occasionally. I wouldn't be chasing after organ meats or stuffing them down your gob. Certainly don't freeze dry them and put them in capsules and eat hundreds of those a day. No.
And taking too much of those nutrients can be a problem as well, though, right?
Sure. Vitamin A can be a problem, for example, if there's too much of it. So there's one right there. Yeah, but really, I think my educated opinion is the most salient, obvious problem with too much liver is probably copper toxicity. Maybe not relevant, but just out of interest, I thought I'd just quickly share this one with you. I have had over the years a number of cats, and what I have found is when these cats are hunting their own prey, they'll catch a mouse or something like that, a small rodent, something like that, they will eat around the liver. Everything is skin, hair, claws, the whole thing is eaten whole, except somehow surgically the cat is able to remove this liver and leave that sat on the floor. I'm not eating that. Dogs, on the other hand, will happily eat organs, entrails, etc. But then they seem to be evolved for that. Probably due to their association largely with humans, where humans chuck them the yucky bits. There you go, dogs. We're going to eat this muscle meat. This looks nice. Organs, you can have those.
All right. Well, thank you, Bart. This has been a great conversation.
So, no, it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you and with your folks. Hopefully, some of them are people who have not been exposed to me previously and who like what they've heard and would be prepared to share the link from your channel out to their social medias so that more people can become aware of my existence in the universe. Yeah, you go to my YouTube channel and you will find a bunch of presentation styles. You'll find a bunch of different character actors that I play. I like to get dressed up in costumes and play silly buggers online sometimes. Occasionally, I take an approach to an issue that's more abrasive and abusive than educational. That's educational too, by the way. So a fair warning. It's probably worth a check. If any of that interests you at all or thinks that sounds intriguing, I'd check it out. If not, I would go directly to that cerule link that was up on the screen earlier and is up on the screen again right now. And also in the show notes under the video, there's a clickable link that you can just click straight on it. And I would get yourselves on cerule products yesterday. I really would. If you want to hear anecdotes from those who have had really meaningful changes in their health status associated with their consumption of this product over and above carnivore, then I suggest you have a look at a playlist of videos on my channel called Adult Stem Cell Related Videos or something very similar to that, and you'll find it all there.
Thank you, Bart.
My pleasure.